Alright, before we start our discussion, I would like you to reflect on these questions. How are you influenced by other people? Has a group ever affected your behavior? Why do you think this happened? How do you influence other people? Right? So reflect on these questions first before we proceed. So welcome here in our last lesson for personal development, lesson number 10, which talks about social relationships among adolescents. So for the previous lesson, we learned about personal relationships among adolescents and all other empirical evidences or findings that psychology found out about some factors that may affect personal relationships. So the same as with the previous lessons, we will also talk about some important concepts and findings from researches, empirical researches about the factors that may affect social relationships among adolescents. So medyo bibilisan po natin ang ating discussion in order for you to understand some of the concepts in a fast manner. Okay? So we'll start first with genes, culture, and gender. Let's define some of these terms. Now, genes, of course, these are the predisposed traits that you got from your ancestors, especially from your parents. So, you learn this in your biology that within the DNA, sets of DNA or chromosomes, there are there are predisposed traits known as the genes. So, say for example, tallness or shortness, having a blonde hair or a short no black hair or blonde hair, or having flat nose or long nose. It depends on the genes that you got from your ancestors, especially your parents. Okay, when we say culture, these are enduring behaviors, ideas, and traditions shared by a large group of people that is passed from one generation to the next. It is something learned by the environment where we belong. So genes are biological, culture are social. Genes, we got it innately from biologically. Culture may be passed down to us and we learn it externally from our environment. Can you cite examples of culture? Say for ex- we feel in discomfort when we meet other culture aside from ours. Why? Because these cultures may have different norms. See, norms are standards for accepted and proper behavior within any culture. So say, for example, one of the norms as Filipinos is to become hospitable when you have visitors. So it is really expected of us, even if no one will be telling us or demanding it from us, to give to feed the visitors by giving them the best that we can have. Another norm is for uh, children or young ones to bless the older ones by yung mano po na tinatawag natin. So nagmamano tayo sa ating mga parents o di kaya sa mga nakakatanda sa atin. Now, it may be a discomfort when some or we are introduced or exposed into another culture. So say for example in the United States, one of the norms there is calling their parents by their first name, which is really different from our norm here. Because when we call them by their first name, it implies disrespect. But in the United States or in the Western countries, that's just normal, right? So there may be different norms, and sometimes exposed to other forms of norms may cause us discomfort. Now let us define what gender and some other related terms are. Well, first, gender is different from sex because when we say sex, there are only two kinds of sex, male and female. Why? Because they are biological. In terms of their bodily features, there are only two uh, distinct sex. So that's male sex and female sex, depends on their bodily features. Gender is different. These are socially expected or imposed characteristics. So these are not innate, but they are passed down or imposed to us through our culture. So, say for example, as a male, You are seen as masculine, you are seen as active, you are seen as extrovert or outward compared to females. Gender roles are the sets of expected duties and responsibilities that you must fulfill in relation to your gender. Now, then again, if sex only has two types, gender has many. So you may say gay is one of the gender, or being a homosexual. You also have being a lesbian, queer, and the like. Those things that you can see in the LGBTQ. So marami po yan. It's not just male and female. Now, because of these different sets of gender expectations, naturally it implies then. Right, so let's talk about the group and group influence. So when two or more people interact, influence each other, and perceive each other as us, hindi lang ako, hindi lang tayo, kundi hindi lang ako, hindi lang ikaw, kundi tayo, that is group. More than one. That is group interacting with one another. So there are also types of collective influences. We have social facilitation. This is the increase of performance or increase or decrease of performance in the presence of others. So say for example, this is the reason why we need to watch NCAA games during the finals and undo whatever what we are doing. That's because we are going there to cheer in order to increase the performance of the players. So, ikaw ba naman, motivate ka bang gumawa ng isang bagay kapag wala nakatingin sa'yo? So, minsan tataasan mo talaga ang performance mo kapag may nakatingin ibang tao, may in the presence of others. Especially kapag family members, pag andun, o mga special na tao. So that is social facilitation. Social loafing is a tendency to exert less effort when you know that there are other people also working hard for the same goal. This is the tendency for the group work, that there are really other people who will not work well compared to others. It's because they are loafing. One way to prevent social loafing is to make the task more challenging. In that way, we need more heads to work on a particular task. Kasi pag easy-easy lang yan, and then other people can do that. Yung iba pwede na mag-banjing-banjing. Pero ito din yung isang dahilan kung bakit ang mga leaders ang gumagawa usually ng mga group work. Almost 50% and pataas yung mga ginagawa ng leaders. That's because they are seen to have the highest and privileged position in the group. Kasi daw kapag feeling nila hindi sila importante dun sa grupo, mataas ang tendency nila na mag-loaf or hindi gumawa. Right? Next is the individuation, abandoning normal restraints as a response to crowd norms. The individuation is when you lose your own personal identity because it has been adopted or overpowered by the crowd norms. So, pero sabi nila, mas less daw ang de-individuation kapag mataas ang your self-awareness, when you know yourself. Kaya mas mabilis daw masway ang isang taong hindi kilala ang kanyang sarili. Mas mabilis siyang kainin ng sistema, mas mabilis siyang dalhin ng ibang tao, mas mabilis siyang ma-influence kapag mahina ang kanyang self-awareness. Groupthink, on the other hand, is the tendency of influential groups to suppress dissent in order to maintain group harmony. Makes a group fail to discuss alternative possibilities and may produce defective decisions. Say for example, sa isang community, sa classroom, for example, meron at merong grupo doon na dominant sa other groups. For example, circle of friends ng mga matatalino, minsan nasasapawan nila yung no, yung decision ng classroom kasi nga sila yung powerful group, dominant group. So just in the name na sila ang pinaka-powerful group, sila ang lagi napapakinggan, so sila lagi ang nakakapaggawa ng decision. So sometimes it's a defective position. Why? Because it can only be recognizing the welfare of those dominant groups. Paano naman yung ibang grupo? hindi dominante. Yun yung groupthink na kung saan kapag kami yung mas influential, ang tendency nyo, nasasapawan nyo yung mga maliliit na grupo. Okay, so how to prevent this? First is seeking outside input. The next is second chance meeting. And then let's answer the question, how can a minority group influence a majority? So there are, this time, ito naman, paano naman mapapakinggan ng isang maliit na grupo na laging nasasapawan ng mga malalaking grupo? First is consistency. If you become consistent with your view, hindi kayong balimbing, palipat-lipat ng view kapag feeling mo wala ka nang mapapala doon sa position na yun. So you must always be consistent of your view. Next is persistence. Indicates self-confidence, tends to raise self-doubt among the majority. So consistency, you have the same vision and persistence. You always assert whatever your views are. So sabihin, you're not ashamed of what you believe. You always talk about it, endorse it in many ways, and the like. And last but not the least is the defection from the majority. It is when the minority group has already established their own identity and they already have some believers. So that's the time that they can freely express their own opinions outside from what the majority is saying or the powerful group is saying. Now let's talk about leadership. The most important thing, sabi nga nila, if there is a defect in a particular group, perhaps it's because of the leader. So this is a very important role in a particular group. Without a leader, a group cannot move, or there is no direction when there is no leader. So this is the process where certain people motivate and guide a particular group. If you want to know more about leadership, please read John Maxwell's book on leadership. So there are different forms of leadership. Directive leadership, ito yung focus lang sa goals, laging nag-utos to a point na minsan hindi na natutuwa yung mga tao, pero very efficient itong mga ganitong leadership kasi ito yung maganda sa mga mabilisang mga task, directive leadership. So I'm not saying that there is one form of leadership which is the best. So these leadership forms of leadership may be instrumental in different tasks and different situations. So as a leader, you must have the capacity to jump from one leadership form to another, okay? Or leadership style to another. Social leadership values teamwork, and social leadership is when you say that there is no such thing as success if it is only made by a person. It must be made by a team. So teamwork is really important here. Focuses on democracy, dapat lahat may say. Transformational leadership is different. A leader motivates others to commit to the group's mission. They do not just lead a democratic team. They do not just command members, but they also inspire members. Members work because they are being inspired by this kind of leaders, transformational leadership. Now you, what is your leadership style? Again, a great leader is measured not on the style that he or she uses, but a leader is measured by the capacity to jump from one leadership style to another depending on the situation or a particular task at hand. Okay, so these are just some of the concepts that we need to learn in order to that we need to consider in terms of understanding social relationships among adolescents. Thank you.